There are times that we want to repeat one or more statements. For example, let's say we have this hello world message here. Let's say we want to print this 5 times on the terminal. We don't want to repeat this code like this. This looks very ugly. That's where we use loops. In Java, we have a few different types of loops. The first one that I'm going to talk about in this tutorial is for loops. So let's see how we can use a for loop here. I'm going to delete all this code. You start by typing the for keyword, followed by parentheses. And inside these parentheses, we need to do 3 things. First, we need to declare a loop or a counter variable. So let's declare a variable called I and initialize it to 0. Quite often, we use variable names like I, j, and k for loop counters. Next, we add a semicolon to terminate the first statement. Then we write a Boolean expression that determines how many times this loop is going to get executed. So I less than 5. As long as I is less than 5, this loop will be executed. Once again, we add a semicolon. And finally, we increment I by 1 like this. So this is the basic structure for a for loop. Now, here we can repeat one or more statements using this for loop. So we can add our hello world message here. Like here we have a single statement, so we don't need braces. But if we have multiple statements that we want to repeat, we need to define a code block here. Now I'm going to remove these because we don't really need them. So let's run this code and see what we get. You get hello world printed 5 times on the terminal. Beautiful. Now let me explain how this code gets executed. When Java sees this for loop, first it will execute this statement. So here we're initializing I to 0. Then Java evaluates this condition. Is this condition true? Obviously it is, because 0 is less than 5. So the control moves to line 7. This line gets executed. Now at the end of this iteration, or at the end of this loop, the control moves here. So I is incremented by 1. Now we are at the beginning of the second iteration. Once again, this condition is evaluated. Is 1 less than 5? Obviously it is. So once again, the body of this loop gets executed. Now, fast forward. At the end of the 5th iteration, I will become 5. 5 is not less than 5, so the loop condition will be false and control moves outside of this for loop. Now, here's one thing you need to remember. If you want to execute something 5 times, you can initialize your loop counter or loop variable to 0 and use the less than operator here. Another way is to initialize this to 1 and then use the less than or equal to operator here. Now, to make this more interesting, let's print I over here. So here we add a space and then concatenate this string with I. Take a look. So we get hello world 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In contrast, if we initialize I to 0 and use the less than operator, we would get hello world 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We can also print these numbers in reverse order. So we initialize I to 5 and execute this loop as long as I is greater than 0. But here, instead of incrementing I, we decrement it. Now, we get hello world 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this is all about for loops. Next, we're going to look at while loops.